What's up, guys? Welcome. This is my Magicka Sorcerer yin yang PvP build for the Greymoor, or whatever the fuck patch this is. A little bit of a disclaimer. You will have to have the expansion, obviously, and you will have to have your scrying and excavating up to level 8 because we are using a mythic item. In fact, one of the mythic items isn't just a synergistic part of the build, it is actually the cornerstone of the build. So without further ado, we're just gonna hop right into it, fellas. Alright, so taking a look at the character sheet, looks pretty bland. We have 45k max. So I'll let you guys take a look at that for just a second. I'm gonna fully buff everything up here. Roll dodging. I mean, you guys, if you read the patch notes, you already know what I'm doing, so. Alright, so with everything fully buffed, well, with the pot, excuse me, the pot, we got 2k maximum magic recovery. If we're on tripods, our health recovery and stamina recovery is going to go up even higher. We have 3k spell damage without our weapon damage proc. With our weapon damage proc, we go up to almost 3,500. Our spell crit's going to go up to around 43k once you start spamming frags. Crit resist, 3,300. Health, take a look at our stamina pool. So, maybe asking, why the fuck do we have such a high stamina pool? There's a big reason for it. For the mythic item we're using, it's the neck piece. So, it will make more sense once I kind of go over the bread and butter of the build. So, this build functions around this set. Now, let me go ahead and go to it just so it'll make sense. So, for the tooltip here, when you fall below 50% stamina, you get a huge burst to your magic recovery, and vice versa when you fall below 50% Magicka. So, viability wise, there's not many classes this is be really good on. Sorcerer in particular, just because we have a stat exchange, hence the term, yin and yang. So the entire precipice of this build revolves around checks and balances. So you won't play super aggressive, but depending on your stat pools determines how and when you play aggressive. It'll make more sense, once I start explaining some of the skills and setup. So I had to go through all that just to show you guys why we have such a high stamina pool. So, for example, let's take one of the minimum extremes of it. Let's say we only have 1,000 stamina, okay? With, our 1,400 stamina recovery, 1,600, where the fuck we have. With Tripods, we got 1,600 stamina recovery. Say we had that, okay? So, if we went from 0 to 1,000, so let's say we 1,600 tick, so you're going to get all your stamina back in one tick, okay? The entire bar is completely full. Now, let's look at the extreme end of that. So you're going from 0% to 100% in like a second. So let's take another extreme. Let's say I had 100,000 stamina, okay? And then I'm down to like the last 5% of my stamina, like 5k or whatever. That 1,600 tick isn't going to bring my minimum percentage of stamina up very much, maybe like 1 or 2% a tick. So, think about that for a second, kind of let it sit in. So what I'm trying to say is you need to float around, your stats need to float around the 50% threshold of your stamina magical pools. So the bigger the pool, the easier it is to float around them. So that's why we have such high maximum stamina. This build will work even better being a dark elf, but currently I'm a high elf. We're running the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, the Mage Mundus for the maximum mag and sustain. So this is a different playstyle. It's not easy to get used to, but once you do get used to it, it kind of plays itself. So we'll get into it a little bit more. Now, skill-wise, there's 2 different ways you can run this, depending on what pots you have access to currently. If you wanted to run the tri-stats, which is the most popular by far. So tri-stats, gives you all your recoveries, gives you a flat boost in all your stats when you pop it. This is the build you're going to run, skill-wise. So we have Crystal Frags, Curse. This is pretty common. I mean, it is what it is. Interlight, this is our source of crit. If we're running different potions, we can get away with not running this. I'll show you that in just a moment. Force Pulse, you can run a Force Pulse or Elemental Weapon from the Sigil Order skill line. Being a controller, it just feels kind of wonky using Elemental Weapon, so I just do a Force Pulse. It feels a lot cleaner. And last is Streak. Streak is our skill shot, CC, does damage, utility, pretty much essential on any sorcerer build. Ultimate wise, we're running Shooting Star, running the Fire Morph because this is a vampire patch. There's a lot of vampires out there, so really not that good of an ultimate to be honest, considering the cost. But you know what else you will run besides Frank or Overload? I'm not a big fan of Overload. Backbar Dark Conversion. So this is kind of the bread and butter of the build as well. When you fall below, pretty low Magicka, you're gonna have 1600 stamina recovery, and that's pretty fucking incredible. So even if you do have like full stam, you can just essentially all those stamina ticks you can just convert to Magicka, and it's an endless source. Checks and balances. What you're losing up here, you're getting here. Well, you can dark conversion it back, and you guys get the point. Only running one ward on this build. You can run two if you want, but I feel 2 wards is kind of redundant, and it really plays against the playstyle we're trying to do. With the sorcerer build, it's very aggressive. You need to be up in their face, roll dodging a lot, blocking a lot. If you're ever at any point in the fight at 100% on stamina or magic, you're doing something wrong. Rapid regen. This is one of the best hots in the game, if not the best. Crit Surge just gives us our major sorcery buff as well as our crits healing us. So not only do we have Critical Surge healing us, we also have Rapid Regeneration, and we have Boundless Storm, and this synergizes really well with Critical Surge because each crit you get actually gives you a tick of 3k no matter how small the crit is. So if there's a few guys tanking you, Boundless Storm crits them all the time, so you pretty much have a 3k tick at all point. Temporal Guard, this is back here to give us the minor protection on our back bar, and also if you have access to the Sigil Order skill line, you have what's called Concentrated Barrier. When you block, you get a small damage shield. This regen's over 10 seconds. It's really helpful. Now, we'll go over sets in a minute. That was the first build with running Tri-Stats. Now if you run Tripods, excuse me. Now if you run the potions that I run, which are the Alliance Spell Drought, you can get them in a Cyrodiil. They did make a big change on them. They made it to where they provide spell crits, so you no longer have to run Inner Light. We don't run Crit Surge. We actually put on Mines because Mines is probably one of my favorite skills in the game. And then if you really wanted to, you don't necessarily have, since we have Resto Staff on the back bar, and we're not running Crit Surge anymore. Balance Storm kind of loses its allure to what it provides. So essentially it's just providing a 10% damage mitigation, which is good. It's not really optimal. We have a better alternative in Sigil or skill line, Channel Acceleration. It gives you the Major Expedition, Balance Storm gives to you, multiplied by 3. It also gives your Minor Force, increasing your crit damage by 10%. Our resistances are low, but a sorcerer, you mitigate damage by, especially on this build, you have a super high stamina pool, so you can roll dodge, block whenever you need to without really having to worry about running out of stats. And plus you have Streak and Mines, so Mines forces your opponents to play different. Streak forces your opponents to play different. When you're constantly roll dodging, people are like, what the fuck is this sorc doing? So once you play around with it, you adopt the playstyle. I think you guys really like it. The resistances really aren't a big deal. Another alternative, you could run on the front bar instead of the Endless Storm or Endless Fear, what the fuck ever. You can slot Ellie Drain. With Ellie Drain, we're going to have 20k spell pin when you combine that with one of the sets and champion points that we're currently using. So I did mix it up and go with skills first because I feel that's more important than the armor sets itself. What's important is you have the mythic item, and kind of whatever sets you want to run really doesn't matter, but optimally you'll want to run these sets. So if you stuck around this far, first set is Spinner's Inferno Staff. Ideally, if you're running Nirnhoned, which you can, it doesn't really matter. You're going to run Nirnhoned or Sharpened. It's kind of a preference. If you're running Ellie Drain, I would run Nernhome because you're kind of overkill on spell penetration. I mean, unless you really want to push the 20k spell pen, then absolutely run it. But if you're not running Ellie Drain, I would suggest running Sharpened. Spinners gives max mag, spell damage, spell pen. As most of you guys know, it's a pretty old set. It's probably my favorite set in the game. One of the best 5-piece. You only have to have it on your front bar. It's just a really, really great set. Like I said, you can either run Shock, Enchantment, or the Prismatic Onslaught for the Daedra and Vampire buff that it gives you. It's not really a buff, it just ticks on them really hard. It does 7k base. If you had an Infused trait, it'll do 9k base. And then if you have Torog's Pact, if you really want to press the enchantment value, you get the proc up to 12k. It's pretty incredible against vampires. Next set running, on our back bar, you can either run a Restoration Staff of Willpower or a Restoration Staff of Potentus. I'm not sure if I have Potentus on me at this point in time, but essentially what Potentus does, it gives you 5% mitigation on your back bar. I opted for the Willpower just because of the max mag increase, therefore the increased ward size on our back bar. You can run Defending or Infuse, is entirely up to you. I just prefer Defending, plus I don't want trade change, to be honest. So you always run a Berserker enchant on your back bar. That's your weapon spell damage proc. Alternatively, you could run Double Destro on this build. If you do run Double Destro, however, you'll have to run Crit Surge and Balance Storm because your heals are just going to be asinine if you don't. Next up, we're running Shackle Breaker. It's a crafted set. The reason we're running this gives a higher stamp pool, which we need. Makes it easier to stay within that 50% threshold for mythic item to really take effect. It's a pretty common set, 6 trait. You guys can read there for yourselves. Reason we're running crafted set is because we're running 5 light armor set spinners. So in order to get your 5/1/1 from your Undaunted passives, you have to run a crafted set, no other way around it, and you want the most stats you can get possible out of this build. The other set we're running is Dummy House. The reason we're running this, it gives you max mag and max sand, which we desperately need. The only downside to running a mythic item, it's really hard to pull off a monster set as well, so you just have to kind of sacrifice a monster set for the mythic item, and they nerfed most of the monster sets anyway, so this is definitely the best way to go. So here's the item itself. You guys can Google it or just pause it or read this here. I mean, you guys already seen it. I do have a magic recovery on. You don't necessarily need it. I just like to over sustain, so that's why it's there. And then the other two, we've sold damage. Everything else, max mag. All the big pieces have tri-stats, all in-pin. Check out some of the tooltips. Well, shit. Honor Frag, 15k. With Inner Light, this is almost 16k, and that's without a proc. Pretty sure you're not going to get a harder hitting build than this based on the amount of raw sustain you have. But that pretty much does it for the build itself. Like I said, it is a little bit different playstyle. Most of the time, your playstyle is going to be determined by your stat pools. Whether your Magicka is lower or your stamina is lower. Kind of determine. I'm not just saying, hey, your stamina is full. Let's just go roll dodge 3 or 4 times, 5 times, just so you can get your magic recovery. I'm not saying do that at all. I'm saying that if your stamina is higher than your Magicka, then you need to be mitigating damage with your stamina pool. And vice versa for your Magicka pool. You have your ward for your Magicka pool to mitigate damage and streak, to get away, and mines to root and snare and LOS people. So just really depends on which pool is higher at what point in time. But like I said, keep it around 50%, ideally around 40% all the time, just so you can get the maximum benefits out of your rings. Now, champion points, you guys may notice I'm not the cap at 810. This is a new PC account. Haven't really been grinding on it, so with our champion points, it is going to be kind of vague. Ideally, You'll want most of your points in the Warlord, Arcanist, Mooncalf, Tumbling, Shadow Ward, all spread out pretty evenly in the green tree. For the blue tree, you'll want Master at Arms. Up to 22% is normally what I run. Put the rest of your points pretty evenly into Elfborn. Ellie Expert, I would stop at 10%. Spell Erosion, and then whatever points you have remaining, I would get this up to 20%, this up at around 4k, and then whatever points you have remaining, put in the Staff Expert. Red Tree, get this up to 21, 22, 23%, as much as you can afford. Crit Resist, I would get this up to 1,000. This tree, spread them pretty evenly between Thick Skin, Ellie Defender, and Hardy. We're not putting points in a Light Arm or a Spell Shield to make your character sheet look nice. It's just not worth it. And put the rest of your points in the Bastion, usually up to 21, 22%. I think I run on Xbox. So there's a quick run through of the champion points. I'm going to keep it short and sweet right there, fellas. I will have clips either at the end of the video, or I'll be uploading them tomorrow. We're kind of dealing with the AC right now here in the apartment, so it's pretty fucking annoying. That's why you see the ghetto ass background instead of at my desk or whatever. So I'm just kind of sitting in my bed and laptop. So if you guys have any questions about the build, I don't think I missed anything. This is probably the most fun I've had in ESO in quite a while, all because of just this mythic item. You just have infinite sustain. You really do. And issue I had a long time playing Sorc. You're very predictable. Your burst is very predictable. But when you toss this into the mix and you're running around with 1600 stamina recovery, you throw a lot of people off guard with the shenanigans you can get away with. So does it for the build. If I miss anything, please let me know down in the comments. And I hope you guys have a great day. Deuces.